Hello friends. This is Fiction Quest. How are you all? So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto make deal with the devil and got harem? But before we start, if you want more amazing stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Also, if possible, share this video with your friends. Now, without wasting any more time, let's begin the story. Young, 6-year-old Naruto cried to himself on his bed in his own apartment. His tears poured over the dried blood on his arms, washing some of it away. Why? Why do they hurt me? What did I do? A deep voice called out to him from the darkness. Do you not like being hurt? The boy looked around his apartment frantically. Who's there? Are you going to hurt me too? It chuckled. Depends on your definition of hurt. No, not really, I'm here to offer you a deal. 3 flames appeared in front of Naruto's eyes, and in a flash of light, the flames were gone, and in their place were 3 fruits, sitting on his bed. Naruto looked at them. The one on the left was a violet melon of some sort, with many swirls on it. The one in the middle looked like a cross between a raspberry and a pineapple, again with swirls on it. The last one looked like a red pepper, but it too had the swirl designs on it. Naruto gulped as he looked at them. What's with the fruit? The voice chuckled again. These fruit can each protect you from harm, but you may only eat one. Oh, and I don't think I'm going to tell you what each one does. It's more fun that way. Naruto stared at the fruit intensely. What do you get out of all this? It was silent for a moment before responding. Let's just say that I am someone who would be very inconvenienced by your dying. The blonde boy nodded, and after a moment, reached out for the middle fruit. Well, I don't like melons, and I don't like peppers, so I'll just have to try this one. He took a bite out of it, and was immediately assaulted by how horrible it tasted. Instead of spitting it out, however, he swallowed the piece as fast as he could. That tasted horrible. In a flash of fire, the remaining fruit all disappeared, and Naruto shivered as he sat there. So what now? The voice paused for another moment before responding. That was something I call the Bara fruit. It gives you the power to split any part of your body in any way you can think away from the rest of your body and control it as it flies through the air. Except for your feet, anyways. The fruit's powers are automatically activated if someone tries to cut you, but you can activate it manually as well. Naruto sniffed. His nose was still running from when he was crying. So, I can't be cut anymore. It sighed. Yes, you can't be cut. That is the biggest advantage of this fruit. There are other advantages as well, as I'm sure you will discover. Why don't you try to separate your hand from your body? Naruto held his hand in front of himself and concentrated. Slowly but surely, his hand came clean off of his arm and was floating in front of him. Just by thinking about it, he was able to make it move up and down, left and right, and was also able to get the hand itself to move as if it were still attached to himself. He made it go to the cupboard far from his bed, hoping to open it. However, just before it reached the cupboard, it just stopped in midair. Naruto was obviously confused. What gives? The voice, to Naruto, almost felt like it rolled its eyes. You can only control your body parts up to a certain distance from your feet. They cannot leave that radius under your own power, and if they are forcibly removed from that radius, they stop functioning, though they won't die on you through the power of the fruit. With time and training, though, you can expand the radius. You have plenty of time before you will be expected to face a life or death situation, so you can start anytime you want. The blonde nodded. Okay, hey, do you have a name I can call you by? It paused for a moment. I suppose, you can call me Kuyu. Naruto smiled. Thanks for giving me this power, Kuyu-sensei. A year later, young 7-year-old Sasuke punched and kicked the padded training log as hard as he could, giving into the anger he felt at his brother. I'll kill him. I have to kill him. A voice called out to him. Oh, such a young person, and to be consumed by such rage. Sasuke stopped and whirled around, glaring at the offender who had walked into the Uchiha private training grounds. He was an older man, with slicked back black hair, a few strands of which were on his forehead. He also had a not too thin mustache, a blue and white military-looking uniform, and lastly an eye patch on his left eye. Who are you? What do you want from me? The man smiled. I was attracted by a high degree of anger, and so I came looking for the source. And here, I find you. Tell me, boy, what has you so worked up? Sasuke grit his teeth. My brother. I need to kill him so I can avenge my clan. But I'm so weak. He graduated from the academy at the age of 5, yet I'm still there, and I'm going to be stuck there for years. I need power. The older man merely continued smiling. Is that so? How would you like to get power, then? The Uchiha boy narrowed his eyes. Something was wrong with this man. Power can't be just given away. A laugh came from the man. Is that so? What if I told you that I can give you power? I can turn your entire body into a blade to cut your enemies with. If you want me to, anyways. Sasuke eyed the man carefully. Well, he had to have lost his eyes somehow. Maybe he was a combat pro? Who are you? This time it was a chuckle. I may not look like it, but I am the very incarnation of wrath. He held out his hand, and it was covered in flames. When the flames disappeared a few moments later, there was what appeared to be a purple-orange, with swirl designs on it in his hand. And this is the incarnation of my power. Take it, and swallow one piece, and you shall be given my power. The black-haired boy gulped, and grabbed the fruit from the man's hands. I'm not going to lose my soul or anything, am I? Wrath chuckled again. No, I think the only possible side effect would be that you might be a bit more wrathful than a normal human. But you've already got that covered, don't you? Young Sasuke narrowed his eyes for a moment, and then, closing them, took a bite out of the fruit and swallowed near instantly from the bad taste. He shook his head in disgust. Couldn't you have made it taste better? Wrath merely smiled. Not really. Sasuke's eyes widened when he saw the man beginning to turn into dust that blew right towards him, pelting him. He shielded his eyes, and when he felt that it was over, he saw that Wrath was gone, along with the fruit. Where did he? Was I just hallucinating? He looked at his hand, and on an instinct willed it to turn into a blade like the man had said, and the sides of his hand really did turn into blades, as well as the bottoms of his fingers. The boy smirked. Things were going to be more interesting from now on. A few years later, a white-clad Lee pelted the training log with even more kicks. 199, 200. He heard a muffled clapping from nearby, and he also heard a childlike voice. Oh, you're good. Lee decided a small break couldn't hurt too much, considering he was exhausted, so he decided to stop and talk to whoever was clapping. When he turned, however, what he saw was not what he was expecting. Standing there was a pink person. He was by no means human. The pink skin and the antenna on top of his head instead of hair attested to that. He was very large, not exceedingly so in height but definitely in fat. His eyes were extremely narrow, and almost seemed closed. He seemed to have holes in his arms, and also had holes instead of ears and around his antenna. He was wearing a black vest with gold trim, golden two-pronged gloves, golden boots, and white, puffy pants with a black belt with a golden buckle that had a stylish M on it. Lastly, he had a purple cape, tied in front of his neck, or lack thereof. The boy was confused. Who are you? The being smiled at the boy. Me Majin Buu, me like you. Lee tilted his head. Dwa. Buu nodded. You work hard, have fun working, me couldn't do that. He held out his gloved hand, and it was covered in flames for a moment. The flames passed, and he had in his hands what looked like a violet melon with many swirls on it. Here, eat. Make you like me. Lee shivered at the thought. Like you? The Majin nodded. Yep, make you very stretchy, like so. He pulled on his cheek, and it stretched with his hand, to a quite a distance farther than any cheek normally could. He let go, and it snapped back into place. Very good for fighting. Lee thought about it for a moment. Being super stretchy means that I could use all sorts of new taijutsu techniques, unique to me. I would have more of a chance to become a shinobi with taijutsu alone. But I wanted to become a shinobi with hard work. Buu tilted his head. Still work hard to be strong, fast, just stretchy too. Lee gulped. So, like, I just eat the fruit. The pink-skinned person nodded. Yep. You eat fruit, you be stretchy like me. Lee looked at the fruit carefully. Well, a year or two later. Ino smirked as she saw Sasuke pass by on the street below her window. Oh, Sasuke. I'll make you mine one day. Now that I'm officially a woman, I want you all the more. I can just imagine what it would be like to kiss those lips. And then after that, we can take off that shirt, and then... My, a little pile of hormones, aren't you? Ino whirled around. Standing in her room was a woman wearing a very revealing black dress and with long, black hair that covered her right eye. Another thing Ino noticed was a tattoo of what appeared to be a snake. A winged one at that. Eating its own tail while circling a symbol that looked like two triangles, one on top of the other with a triangle-shaped hole in the middle, on her chest. Who are you? How'd you get in here? The woman put her hands in front of herself. Wait, don't call your dad in here just yet. You see, I have a proposition for you. Ino put herself on guard. What kind of proposition, miss? She chuckled. You may call me Lust? The blonde girl tilted her head. Lust? What kind of name for a proper woman is that? Lust chuckled again. Do I look like a proper woman to you? Ino decided it best not to respond. The woman continued talking when she realized Ino was just looking at her strangely. Anyways, I'm here to offer you the ability to manipulate others' hearts, by turning you into somebody that they can't resist. Ino relaxed her guard slightly. How? Lust held out her hand, and it became covered in flames. After a moment, the flames died down, revealing a pink, heart-shaped fruit with many swirls on it. This fruit has almost all of my power in it. By eating it, I will become bonded to you, and you will gain traits based on my power, including the ability to attract anybody who could possibly be interested in you with your body, whether they be man or woman. The young Yamanaka nearly gagged. I don't want to be a lesbian. Lust chuckled. No, this will not affect your sexuality. Anything you do is of your own will. No, I said that it will attract anyone who could possibly be interested to you. This even includes otherwise straight women or gay men. There are other advantages to my power, as well. Ino relaxed her guard even more. Other powers? The older woman nodded. Yes. For example, you can turn any person who is thinking about you in that way into stone. Combined with the power to attract almost anyone with your body, this is a very deadly combination indeed, don't you think? Ino seemed to think about it for a moment. Wait, almost anyone? Who would be the exception? Lust shrugged her shoulders. I've never actually come across anyone who could resist my powers, but there is the possibility that someone consumed with an emotion not related to love or lust, such as, say, hate, will be unable to even think about such things. But my power also has combat abilities, as well. So it's not a complete loss if they simply don't like you. The girl dropped her guard completely. So, I'm not gonna lose my soul if I eat the fruit, am I? Lust laughed. No. Though you may end up with lust as core to your personality. Although, I wouldn't be offering this to you if it wasn't already. Ino walked over to Lust and took the fruit from her hands. She stared at it for a moment. Well, here goes. The smile on Lust's face widened as Ino swallowed the bite she took out of the fruit. Blah, disgusting. Lust continued smiling as she began dissolving into dust on the wind from the bottom up, which was odd considering there wasn't any wind in the room. I'll see you later, young one. Use your new body well. As she disappeared, the fruit caught fire and Ino had to throw it against the wall, where it disappeared, flames and all. Ino huffed, and then thought of something. Mirror, I need a mirror. Earlier that same day Shikamaru wandered up to his usual rooftop in search of his special spot, so he could lie down and look at the clouds. However, he was surprised to find that someone was already up there, laying on the roof, and at just how large this man was. He was gigantic, a few times as tall as Shikamaru himself, and several times as wide. Something that disturbed Shikamaru was that it was all muscle. He was wearing what looked to be some manner of leather. Trousers, maybe. It had pants, 2 bands that went over his shoulders, and a band that went around his middle. An odd choice. His long black hair was everywhere as he lay there. As Shikamaru maneuvered around him, he realized the man's eyes were definitely weird. His left eye seemed to be a glowing circle, while his right eye was covered by a golden band that had a few circles along its length, one around his eye and the others on his shoulder. Peculiarly, he had 2 shackles on his arms with very long chains. The man tilted his head to the side and seemed to look at Shikamaru. Why? You, here? The young boy muttered his trademark, troublesome, under his breath before responding. I'm just here to look at the clouds. The behemoth tilted his head slightly more. Why, you, here, not, at, school? Shikamaru raised an eyebrow. 'Cause I'm lazy, school's too troublesome for me, too much work. He watched as the man began looking at the sky again. School. Troublesome. Work. Troublesome. Everything. Troublesome. The Nara boy could only smirk. You've got that right. What's your name? I'm Nara Shikamaru. The man looked at him again. Name. Sloth. I'm lazy, too. He turned his palm upwards, and it was wreathed in flames for a moment. When the flames disappeared, he had in his hands a fruit of some kind. Shikamaru thought it looked like a red pineapple, only without the tough skin. Eat. Make. Things. Slower. Point. And. Shoot. Shikamaru could only raise his other eyebrow. Say what now? Wait. You're saying that if I eat this fruit, all I have to do is point and shoot, and I'll be able to slow things down? The man nodded slowly. Shikamaru stared at the fruit for a moment. What the heck? I'll give it a shot. Slowing things down would certainly make life so much easier. The boy picked up the fruit and took a bite out of it. His eyes widened at the taste, but he managed to swallow it. Geez, you couldn't have made it taste better? The man smiled, and Shikamaru saw that he had 2 rows of very sharp teeth. Good. My work done. Sleep. Now. His body began dissolving into dust, which blew past Shikamaru and into the distance. Shikamaru sighed as he saw the last of it disappear, and noticed that the fruit was gone as well. How troublesome. Again, that same day Choji tilted his bag of chips upside down and shook it, but not even crumbs came out. Man. I'm still hungry. Suddenly, his vision was taken up by a large fruit. He blinked, and saw that someone was holding the fruit. He looked at the man. He was certainly odd. He was bald and rather rotund, and wearing a black armless jumpsuit. The man grinned as he held the fruit out. Eat. Yet again, that same day Tenten had recently graduated from the academy, and she was glad for it, too. While being a ninja meant work, work meant money. She cackled gleefully as she counted her latest earnings as she sat on the rooftop. Guy-sensei had gotten them a C-rank mission sooner than most teachers would, and the pay was well worth the effort. What should I spend it on, I wonder? I can't really wear jewels on missions, now, can I? What's the point of getting money if I can't enjoy it? So you like money and jewels, do you? She snapped her head to the left. How long had he been sitting next to her? Why yeah. Not sharing with you, though, that's for sure. The man chuckled. I like your spirit, kid. Name's Greed. You? Tenten eyed him carefully. He had short spiky hair, though it was only spiked in one direction, and round sunglasses. He was wearing a jacket with a white furred collar over a muscle shirt and leather pants, and he had on several small armbands on each arm. He raised an eyebrow at Tenten's hesitation to say her name. She shook her head to clear her mind. I'm Tenten. I'm a ninja, you know. She took out a kunai and twirled it on her finger just to be intimidating. Greed chuckled. So I see. Ninja. You lot are mercenaries, right? Pretty much in it for the money. Especially you, right? Tenten tilted her head. Well, I do have goals. Like proving kunoichi are just as good as male shinobi. But money's a really nice bonus. Greed grinned at her words. Is that so? Then, you might like the power that I can give you. He held out his palm, and for a moment it was covered in intense flames. The fire died down quickly, and in his hands he had what appeared to be a golden apple, with many swirl designs on it. Tenten scooted a little farther away from the man. She had heard from Lee that this was how he had gotten his strange stretchy body. And why would I take power from a man? He chuckled again. Hey. You want equality, but you're just as quick to shoot me down for the mere fact that I'm a man. Anyways, this fruit is what I call the Tanso no Mi. It can give you the power to generate, manipulate, and even become carbon. She raised an eyebrow. Carbon, huh? What's so great about carbon? As in, the stuff diamonds are made out of? Greed nodded and grinned at her look. Yep, the hardest mineral in the world. Great for piercing and slashing. Though it has more than just offensive uses. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Tenten gulped as she eyed the fruit near greedily. I could actually make and shape diamonds with this power? Greed's grin got even wider. You can even turn yourself into diamonds to protect yourself from attacks. The brown-haired girl didn't really need to be told about that particular facet of the power. Sign me up, so I just eat this fruit, then. He nodded, and in a blur of motion she had taken it out of his hands and chomped on it. She chewed for a moment, holding back tears from just how bad the fruit tasted, and swallowed. She immediately took another bite out of the fruit, causing Greed to raise an eyebrow. You only needed one bite. Tenten blushed as she swallowed her second bite. Oh. Greed shook his head as he began dissolving into dust on the wind. Well, see ya around, Tenten. Let there never be an end to your greed. Tenten watched the dust for a moment, and then looked at her hand. After a moment, what looked like some graphite appeared in her hands. Guess I better get to work on figuring out how to make diamonds. Then I can make diamonds for weapons purposes. Yeah, that's it. Sakura sighed as she sat in the row behind her favorite Uchiha. What she wouldn't give to be sitting next to Sasuke. However, Naruto wasn't the one sitting next to the Uchiha. He was sitting 2 seats down instead, so she couldn't just bully him out of the seat and take it for herself. Even more so considering that there was some blonde girl sitting next to the Uchiha prodigy. Ino's voice came from the doorway. Good morning, Ninja Academy. The pink-haired girl heard a collective gasp from the class, and she decided to see what the big deal was. Her jaw dropped. Ino looked drop-dead gorgeous. She couldn't really pick out what was really different about the girl. If there was anything different, it was probably the look in her eyes. Her eyes just drew you in. Sakura had to fight back a blush when she realized she was actually attracted to the other girl. Ino sauntered into the room, nearly everybody's gaze on her except for Shikamaru and Choji, who were asleep and eating, respectively, and Sasuke, who was brooding. She stopped at Sasuke's row, tilting her head as she looked at Naruto and the girl and smirked seductively. You two wouldn't mind moving so I could sit next to dear Sasuke, would you now? Naruto was blushing his head off as he nodded dumbly and got up. The same with the girl, too. Ino blew a kiss at Naruto as she walked past him, causing him to promptly faint, and as Ino sat down next to Sasuke, the girl stepped on Naruto to get in his old seat. Ino tried to look as cute as she could as she began talking to Sasuke. Sasuke, how'd I look? Sasuke raised an eyebrow as he looked at her. I don't see what the big deal is. You haven't changed at all. Ino looked crushed, but then she remembered Lust's words. Sasuke must be consumed with an emotion of some sort. But what? Sighing, she turned to Sakura, who promptly blushed. Hey, Sakura, like what you see? Sakura's blush fought with her urge to pale at the implications of such a statement. And no, I just. Ino gave a tired sigh as she turned around, and Sakura relaxed a bit. What is with me today? What is with everyone? It's like Ino just has the magical ability to attract just about anyone. Except Sasuke, apparently. I'm fine if I don't look at her, but... Her inner self yelled in her mind. Shanaru. I'm not a lesbian, I'm not. She was very glad when Iruka-sensei decided to come into class and distract her with school. Sakura sighed as she sat at the edge of the pond, skipping stones across the water's surface. I'm envious of Ino, really. She's turned into such a beautiful woman, and yet I'm... Her inner voice began yelling at her. How can you be so calm about this? You should be enraged. How dare she attract you, Shanaru? The pink-haired girl sighed again. She probably wouldn't be interested in me. She has her eyes set on Sasuke too. Don't let her attract you. Be angry that she's so beautiful now. That should be you that everybody is drooling over. She should be drooling over you. Wait. Scratch that. You want her to be envious of your beauty. Sakura contemplated this for a moment. Well. Yeah. How dare she be more beautiful than me? I'm gonna be even more beautiful than her someday, even if I have to take her beauty for myself. I won't let her overshadow me any longer. Someone chuckled from behind her. My, that's an interesting philosophy to have. Envious of someone's beauty, huh? She turned to face whoever was talking to her. They looked like... Well, she couldn't be sure if they were a cross-dressing boy or a flat-chested, masculine girl. They had long brown hair, with some kind of headband peeking out between the bangs with an upside-down triangle with circles at each corner as the central, and only, design. They had on a black sleeveless cut-off shirt that left everything from the bottom of the ribs to the waist open, and instead of an open neck the cloth continued halfway up their neck. They also had on some manner of black skirt, and just below the skirt on their left leg was a tattoo that she couldn't see too well from this angle. Lastly, it appeared they were wearing heel-less, open-toed socks. Sakura gulped. Who are you? The person chuckled. Me? Name's Envy. I'm here to give you something. Envy held out their hand, palm up, and it was quickly wrapped in flames. The flames died away a moment later, and it revealed a green pear with swirl designs in Envy's hand. With this fruit, you will gain the ability to become anybody who you've touched since you gained the fruit's power. The pink-haired girl raised an eyebrow. Isn't that what the transformation jutsu is for? Envy face-palmed and muttered something to theirself. While, yes, that does physically transform you into a look-alike of something else. This makes you into a perfect copy, right down to the DNA. Not only that, but you can mix and match different people, too. Want somebody's eyes? They're yours. Want a different person's hair? You can have both. Want somebody's strength or speed? Voila, you have their body. And since you're a ninja, want someone's Kekkei Genkei? Just copy them, and you can use it. Sakura's breath hitched so many possibilities. She learned about Kekkei Genkei in an extra credit class in the academy. They were jutsu unique to people's DNA, and could be passed down through a lineage. If she could copy those, everyone would be envious of her, that was for sure. Her inner voice spoke again. You should take that power. You have a right to it. Show the world what you can really be, never be envious of someone else again. So, do I just eat the fruit? Envy nodded. One bite, and the power's yours. She hesitated, but she grabbed the fruit after a moment, and after staring at it for a moment longer, bit into it. She ignored the bad taste, and swallowed. After another moment, she lashed out at Envy and slapped his face. A moment later, and Envy grinned. Sakura had turned into a copy of Envy, only wearing Sakura's clothes. Sakura blushed as she stood there. Definitely a guy. The now identified boy laughed as he began turning into dust. Good luck, princess. The night before the graduation exam, Ino sighed as she walked down the street. It was dark out, and she really needed to get home. She was looking at the ground and not really watching where she was going, which she would soon regret. A moment later, and she bumped into someone. She looked up, and saw that it was Mizuki-sensei. Oh, Mizuki-sensei. I'm sorry, I wasn't looking where I was going. Mizuki chuckled. Don't worry about it. Are you heading home right now? The girl nodded. Yes, I live a few streets down, so I was going to head through the alleys to get home. Mizuki raised an eyebrow. A pretty girl like you, going through the alleys on a night like this by yourself? I'm gonna have to be a responsible adult and walk you home. The blonde puffed her cheeks in annoyance. I'm almost a ninja myself, you know. Mizuki chuckled. Yes, well, there are a lot of people in this town who are ninja. It'd give me peace of mind if I walked you home. A sigh escaped Ino's lips as she gave in. Fine. As they walked into the rather long and winding alley, Mizuki tried to strike up a conversation. So, Ino, you sure have been popular in school lately. Ino nodded absent-mindedly. Yeah. Guess everyone just sees me for my true beauty now. The man chuckled. Is that so? Say, Ino, can you recommend a good restaurant for me? I'm leaving town after this semester is over, and I want to sample some of Konoha's delicacies. She seemed to think about it for a moment. Well, there's always the Konoha Cafe. Wait, what? Ino stopped in the middle of the alley, completely out of view of any streets. You're a ninja, you can't just leave. Mizuki chuckled yet again. My, how perceptive. She whirled around, only to suddenly be pinned against the wall by her arms, Mizuki leaning over her. Well, then. I'm sure you can guess what kind of delicacy I was really asking about, can't you? Her eyes widened in horror at the implications. Come on, Ino. Give your sensei a kiss, would you? She eyes gained a dangerous glint. A kiss, you say? Well, if you insist. She pursed her lips together and made a smacking sound, and suddenly a pink heart-shaped object appeared right in front of her mouth, momentarily stunning Mizuki just by the sight of it. She blew on it, and it flew from its position and into Mizuki's chest, causing him to let go of her from sudden pain. He gripped where he had been hit. The thing had pierced through his armor, and now he was bleeding. He looked up, and saw that Ino was actually beginning to take her shirt off. Silly sensei. If all you wanted was me, you just had to ask. Suddenly, all thoughts of his pain washed away, replaced by desire for this girl. Ino smirked when she saw him suddenly overcome with lust yet again. Bingo. She formed her hands into a heart shape, with her thumbs at the top and her fingers forming the sides and bottom. Suddenly, the shape began to emit heart-shaped waves of pink light at her sensei, who, when touched by them, immediately turned entirely into stone. Ino's legs wobbled for a moment before collapsing underneath her. Kami. He was going to rape me. After lying there for a few moments, observing the statue of her sensei, she got up, adjusted her shirt, and walked away, albeit slowly. The day of the graduation exam, Iruka sighed as he faced his class. I have some very bad news, class. Early this morning, they found Mizuki-sensei turned to stone, in an alleyway. The military police are investigating who may have done it, but they don't have a clue what kind of jutsu could do this to a person. They have the best scientists working on how to reverse the process, but it may be irreversible. As the class whispered to themselves, Ino merely rolled her eyes. Freak tried to rape me last night, I think he deserves a horrible fate. Iruka let them get it out of their systems, and then coughed to gain their attention. All right, class. It's time for your exams. I'll call you into the next room, and then you'll perform the clone jutsu. Naruto sighed to himself from his seat. Good thing Kuyu-sensei decided to help me with that, or else I'd be failing again. It was strange, the voice in the back of his head had been quiet for a long time, pretty much since he had mastered his bara abilities, but after he failed the exam a second time it spoke again, and taught him how to control his chakra better through exercises. After he could perform the clone jutsu fairly well, it stopped talking to him yet again. Naruto grinned as he walked away with his Hite-ite, engraved with an emblem of a leaf, Konohagakure's symbol. Oh, what a fine day it was, even with Mizuki-sensei getting petrified. Naruto yawned as his team waited for their sensei. He decided to sneak a peek at this new Sakura. She certainly seemed different than the old one. Had she been hiding her true self for all this time? With her new clothes, she certainly seemed more confident. Naruto had never met the boy, so there was no way he could identify the clothes as envies. He just thought that the clothes looked good on her, whatever they were. Though, she wasn't as good looking as Ino. No one compared to Ino in Naruto's mind. He glanced at his other teammate. Sasuke, on the other hand, was still the jerk Naruto had always known him to be. He wasn't stuck up or anything, he was just easily ticked off. He got mad at a lot of things. He observed the door yet again. He had carefully taken an eraser and wedged it at the top of the door, and was now waiting for it to fall on his sensei's unsuspecting head. He mentally cheered when he saw a hand enter the small crack and grab hold of the door, and as it opened the man peeked his head into the room, the eraser bouncing off of his head in a cloud of chalk dust. Naruto was too busy laughing to really observe the man. Sakura merely rolled her eyes, as did Sasuke. The man coughed into his hand before speaking. Well, now. If I had to give my first impression, I'd say that I hated you guys. Meet me up on the roof in 5 minutes. As the man disappeared from view, Sakura was the first to get up from her seat. Come on you two, we better get going. Sasuke nodded in agreement, while it took a moment for Naruto to stop laughing and come along as well. When they got to the roof, they found their new sensei leaning against a rail. Naruto finally took a good look at him. He was kind of tall, wore standard Jonin gear, and he had gray silver hair that stood up high and leaned to the left. He had on a mask over his mouth and nose, and his Hite-ite was crooked, covering his left eye, the result being that the only part of his face that you could see was his right eye and the immediate surroundings. As they sat down on the roof in front of him, he sighed. So, I guess we better get introduced to each other first. Names, likes, dislikes, hobbies, and dreams for the future, I guess. Who wants to go first? Sakura snorted. I will. My name is Haruno Sakura. I like being at the top, and I dislike it when people are better than me at anything. Hobbies. I don't feel like revealing that to you. As for dreams for the future, I want to be the most beautiful person in the world. The man raised an eyebrow. It's not exactly love, but she's still obsessed with her looks. And that envious personality can't be healthy. All right, then. Emo boy, you go next. Sasuke rolled his eyes at the comment but spoke anyways. I'm Uchiha Sasuke. I don't really like anything, but I dislike a whole ton. My hobby is woodcarving. My dream, my ambition, is to kill a certain man. His sensei nodded, but in his mind it was shaking in disappointment. Boy has issues. Probably took up woodcarving as a way to vent a need to cut things. I've seen many swords users do the same. Wouldn't be surprised if those arm warmers were covering up some scars. He turned to Naruto. And lastly. The boy smirked. Name's Uzumaki Naruto. I like pulling pranks, and I dislike it when people don't find my pranks all that funny. My hobby. Pulling pranks, of course. As for my dream. I want to be Hokage, so no one will ever look down on me again. The older man sighed. He likes pranks so much, yet he wants to be Hokage. Though, it is in his blood. All right then, now. Naruto pointed his finger at the man. Wait, you haven't told us about you yet. He sighed. All right, I'll tell you. My name's Hitaki Kakashi. I don't feel like telling you anything other than that. Now then. He took out some papers and handed them to his students. You'll show up at the location shown on those papers, prepared for a survival exercise. Sakura narrowed her eyes. Haven't we graduated from having to do those? Kakashi chuckled at something only he thought was funny. Well, now, here's an interesting tidbit. You three aren't genin yet. The blonde boy's eyes widened at the revelation. Wait, what? What do you mean? Their sensei sighed into his mask. You see, you guys have one last test before becoming genin. Facing me. Only if you can overcome me can you guys become genin. Sasuke frowned at this news, and his body tensed. Kakashi sensed the tense atmosphere. Well, anyways, I'll see you guys tomorrow. You can bring anything you feel like you'll need, weapons included. See ya. Smoke exploded from his feet, enveloping him. When it disappeared, he was gone as well. The three genin-to-be were very irritated when 11 o'clock rolled by. They had been instructed to be here hours ago, and yet their sensei had not shown up. Naruto took the time to check his equipment, mainly the sword strapped across his back. He had bought it when he realized that it was a good way to take advantage of his powers. He would lure his opponent into a sword fight, and then he could take advantage of a swing made while he was open, and cut them down while they were cutting him down, a suicide move for someone other than him. When their sensei did show up a minute later, all three of them shouted, "You're late." In unison. Kakashi acted embarrassed. "Ahaha. It's a long story, I assure you." Anyways. He set a clock on the middle log of 3 training logs that were standing in the clearing, and pushed a button on it. This is set for noon. Your job is. He took out a pair of small bells, and dangled them by their strings. To get one of these from me. If you get one, you pass. If not, not only do you go without lunch, but you go back to the academy as well. You can use any means necessary to get them, and you must come at me with the intent to kill. Otherwise it'll be useless. Any questions? Sasuke smirked. If I go all out against you, I'm afraid I really will kill you, or at least accidentally perform an in-field amputation. So I have to ask you if you'd be willing to just hand a bell over. Kakashi merely seemed to smile. It was kind of hard to tell. Well, I must say you have guts. But sorry, this isn't one of those tests. You really do have to earn it. Now, when I say go. Go. Immediately. Naruto disappeared into the trees, while Sasuke and Sakura stayed behind. Kakashi blinked. Well, to be honest, I was expecting the opposite to happen. So, why aren't you two hiding? Sasuke smirked as he placed his fist into his other palm. Because I'm more of the direct approach kind of guy. What about you, Sakura? Sakura smirked as well. Well, my special ability is more suited for direct combat than more sneaky methods. Their sensei stiffened at the mention of a special ability. Does this have anything to do with her sudden specialty in taijutsu in the last semester? The pink-haired girl took a step forward. If you don't mind, I want to go first. Sasuke merely raised an eyebrow. You've certainly changed recently, but all right. Sakura smirked at the comment, and began walking towards Kakashi. He pulled out a book from his back pocket and began reading it, which annoyed her slightly. What do you think you're doing? He smiled again. Oh, just reading. Don't worry, it won't affect our battle. You still won't be able to touch me. Her smirk turned into more of a slasher smile. Is that so? She touched her right hand to her face, and in an instant she was Sakura no more. Now she was Might Guy, a man who had taught taijutsu at the academy for a day only. He was still in a skirt. Kakashi choked on his own spit at the image, which cost him dearly when in the blink of an eye, she had closed the distance and kicked him in the side, knocking him away and causing him to roll a few times before kicking himself back up and putting away the book. So, this is your special ability? To copy other people? She nodded, but when she spoke her voice was the deep tone that belonged to Might Guy. Right. I can copy anyone I touch, muscle structure included. I got real lucky with this guy. Apparently he's the taijutsu specialist among Jonin. She disappeared, and Kakashi ducked under her punch, and punched the girl in the gut. As she backed away, Kakashi sighed in relief. So that's why you specialized in taijutsu. You wanted to take advantage of his body. Though, you're still nowhere near as good as him. And I spar with him on a regular basis, so I can fight on a level much higher than you. Sakura swore under her breath, but as Kakashi was focused on her, he barely noticed Sasuke jumping up from behind her, positioned for an axe kick. Kakashi, for a moment, moved to block, but then he saw something that notably frightened him. The entire back of Sasuke's leg had turned into a blade. The Jonin jumped backwards, and just in time Sasuke's leg cut through the space he had been standing, and left a gouge in the ground as he stood up. Shoot. I didn't get him. Kakashi narrowed his eye. Were you trying to kill me? Sasuke raised an eyebrow in response. You told us to, remember? The Jonin had to resist the urge to slap his face. Of all the times he got the special group, all he had to be wary of now was Naruto having a special ability. He checked his belt. No, the bells were still there. Good. Sakura turned to teammate. You want to work together to get the bells? His response was to turn his arm into a blade. Just don't get in my way. Kakashi sighed as he prepared to face their combined onslaught. I'm going to be tired by the end of this, I can tell. The alarm rang through the training field, and an exhausted Sasuke fell to the ground panting. How can you two fight like that? Sakura shrugged. This body's great for long endurance exercise. Kakashi did the same, though he seemed a bit worse for the wear than Sakura. Same here. He seemed to smile. Well, now that that's all over with. He checked the bells again, and his eye widened. Where are the bells? Naruto's laughter started ringing through the field as well. You want to know? He jumped out of a nearby tree, and he held out his hand. He had both bells in his palm. Haha. I grabbed them right after you checked last, Kaka-sensei. Sasuke growled as Naruto continued to babble on about how great he was. Naruto. If you know what's good for you, you will shut up and hand me a bell. Naruto stuck out his tongue. Or what? You'll cut me. Come on. I dare you, scratch my face. The raven-haired boy growled again. You asked for it. He held up his hand to Naruto's face, and then drew a line across it. Naruto's eyes seemed to widen in shock. Before his head split in two along the line, the top half sliding off and hitting the ground as Naruto collapsed. Sasuke just stood there, frozen. He collapsed to his knees. I didn't. It was just a scratch. He promptly fainted. Kakashi calmly walked over to Naruto's corpse, and noticed something. There was no sign of blood. At all. He couldn't even see the internal organs. For some odd reason Naruto's insides seemed to be a solid wall of red. All right, Naruto, you can stop faking. Naruto's body chuckled. You got me, sensei. His body got up, and the top half of his head floated into the air and reattached itself to its lower half. He began grinning, and his head separated from his body at the neck and started floating, and even rotating clockwise. Look, I'm grinning my head off, ha 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 ha. Sakura was appropriately creeped out as she turned back into her normal form. How are you doing that? Is it a keke genkai? Naruto stuck out his tongue, which then separated from his mouth and hung in midair for a moment before returning to his mouth. Nope. Special jutsu. It activates either when I get cut or when I will it to happen. My body manages to stay alive due to some space-time manipulation of some sort. Kakashi seemed impressed. Oh, and where did you learn such a jutsu, Naruto? The boy's body tensed, and his head stopped rotating while it was upside down. Where did Sakura get that special ability of hers? Sakura also tensed, and then she pointed at Sasuke. How is he able to turn his body parts into swords? Sasuke, being unconscious, had nothing to say. Their sensei merely sighed. All right, if you don't want to tell me, you don't have to. But, there is the matter of whether or not you pass. Naruto froze. Wait, what's that mean? I have the bells, right? Kakashi sighed. You weren't meant to get the bells. There was another way to pass. That Sakura and Sasuke managed to grasp, even if inadvertently. Naruto seemed to think it over for a moment as his head reattached itself to his body. What did they do? They worked together. That's how we were supposed to pass. The man seemed to smile. Bingo. Looks like he's not too dumb after all. They were working pretty well in tandem during that fight. Now, can you tell me why you didn't work together with them? Young Naruto looked a little ashamed. Because there were only 2 bells. It was meant to put us at odds with each other. Kakashi almost looked like he was going to laugh. Well, now, this is quite interesting. You know exactly why I should fail you and not them. Tell you what. How would you feel about working together with, say, Sasuke? He looked at the unconscious Uchiha. Well, he isn't really all that stuck up. He just gets pretty mad real easily. And our abilities would make for some pretty awesome combos. If he can live with me, I can live with him. The Jonin nodded. And how about Sakura? Naruto seemed to think it over for a moment yet again. Well, she's no Ino, but I'll deal somehow. The pink-haired girl looked offended. I'm no Ino, huh? Why oughta? She put her right hand to her face, and with a slight popping sound she had turned into Ino. What about now? Naruto looked her up and down. Something's missing. I don't know what it is, but there's just something not right between this Ino and the real deal. Sakura untransformed, and she growled. I knew it. Kakashi raised his eyebrow. Knew what? Her frown deepened. Ino's ability to make just about anyone fall for her. It's just that, an ability. Naruto's her biggest fan, and yet he looks at my perfect imitation of her and he just shrugs it off. Kakashi seemed to think about it. You say she can attract just about anybody, now? Sakura nodded. Yeah, even the adults drool over her. Iruka-sensei's the only one with enough self-control to not even bother commenting on it. To me, she looks no different than the day before it all started. The Jonin sighed into his mask. That's something that bears investigating. Well, anyways, business before pleasure. Let's see. I should punish Sasuke for cutting Naruto like that, but I think the shock was more than enough. When he wakes up, let him know that we're officially a team now, would you? Smoke exploded from his feet, obscuring him from view, and when it cleared, he was gone. The blonde turned to Sakura. So, who else can you turn into? Besides Gai-sensei and Ino? She shrugged. A couple of people. My ability requires that I touch their face with my right hand. Anybody you want to see? Naruto mulled it over for a minute. Let's see. Oh, Iruka-sensei. Do him. The girl smiled. Well, one skirt-clad sensei coming right up. Naruto literally laughed his head off at the resulting image when Sakura transformed. Gahahaha. He put his head back on. Man, that was good. Sakura's smile turned into a smirk, and she transformed again, this time into the shy Hinata, a Hyuga girl from their class. Naruto blushed at how much larger this girl's chest was than he realized. Hinata approached him, swaying her hips seductively. Oh, Naruto. Please. Naruto was nearly blushing his head off but not quite there yet. Sakura. What are you doing? Sakura frowned and untransformed. Oh, boo, you're no fun. I was just teasing you. The boy was still blushing. I didn't realize Hinata was so, under that jacket. Sakura smirked. If that's all it takes to turn you on, then I can just do that at will. Watch. She put her right hand to her face again, and instantly her chest expanded to Hinata size. See? Just like that. Naruto clapped a little. So, like, you can mix and match people? She nodded. Yep. Watch this. She placed her right hand to her face again, and her body seemed to be a blur for a moment. When it was done, her head looked similar to Iruka-sensei's. It had the same features, including the scar, but it was more feminine, and the ponytail was down, resulting in straight hair that surrounded her face. Her body shape was that of Hinata's, but it had the same tan skin Iruka had. Here, mixing Iruka's features with Hinata's body. How'd I look? She blinked when there was a loud thump sound. Naruto had fainted with a nosebleed. Huh. Guess Iruka makes for a damn good girl. Sarutobi Hiruzen was not pleased. All three of them have special abilities? Kakashi managed to stifle a groan. Yes sir, that's exactly what I said. Sakura can copy people perfectly, down to their muscle structure, while Sasuke can turn his body parts into blades and has skin made of steel. Naruto's got the weirdest one. His body can split apart and fly through the air, with no adverse effects to his body at all. The old Hokage frowned. I see. We can probably explain where Naruto got his. And Sakura's might be a new Kekkei Genkai. But Sasuke's is a mystery indeed. Can you elaborate on these abilities? Kakashi nodded. Well, Naruto claims his special jutsu allows him to split his body apart either when it gets cut or at will. The body parts are linked together through a space-time jutsu, so the body as a whole doesn't cease functioning. Sakura claims hers creates perfect copies of the people she touches, though I don't know what the exact requirement on that is. Sasuke didn't elaborate on his. What I observed is what you get. Hiruzen exhaled into his pipe. Is there anything else you need to report? The Jonin sighed into his mask. Not need to, but Sakura suspects that Yamanaka Ino also has a special ability, that is, to attract anyone who so much as looks at her. Sakura's suspicion results from copying Ino's form, and yet Naruto, apparently the girl's biggest fan, didn't find her very attractive at all. The girl has been extremely popular in the village as of late, apparently. Hiruzen nodded at that. I've had a couple of shinobi turn themselves into psychological counseling over a completely overwhelming attraction to her hitting them. Even Asuma, Ino's new sensei, has admitted to being mildly attracted to her. And he reported odd abilities on the part of his team as well. In the meantime. Why did you pass them? Kakashi stiffened a little. I hope it wasn't due to favoritism. Kakashi barely shook his head. Not really. Sakura and Sasuke worked really well together, and Naruto pretty much admitted that they should pass instead of him with only a small nudge in the direction of what the test was about. I think they have a lot more potential than most of the other groups I've had to deal with. I want to see where they can go if given proper direction. Old Sarutobi exhaled again. I see. In case you want to know, it was Asuma's and Kurenai's squads that passed this time around. The Jonin nodded. I'll have to chat them up about it. Is that all, Hokage-sama? Hiruzen nodded back to the Jonin sensei, dismissed. Naruto held back his laughter as the poor cat was squashed in a bear hug by its obese owner. Hee, stupid cat. That's what you get for trying to scratch me. The Hokage looked at a list of missions. All right then. Let's see what you guys have next. Naruto pointed at the elderly ninja. Hey, old man. Give us a better mission this time. That was way too easy. Iruka looked ready to bite his head off. Why you respect the Hokage? Sakura stepped forward. With all due respect, then, Hokage-sama. These missions. We've been working hard. We should be entrusted with something a bit more to our skill level. Sasuke stepped forward as well. I have to agree with them. Now Iruka looked ready to kill someone. Kakashi, keep your charges under control. Hiruzen could only laugh. Well. That's too bad. You guys were doing so well with the D ranks, too. Well, I've got a C rank right here that ought to be perfect. A protection mission of an individual. The academy teacher sputtered in place. Hokage-sama? You can't be serious. Sakura bowed, though it seemed a little forced. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Naruto hurriedly did the same, as did Sasuke. Naruto seemed a little excited. Who is it? A daimyo? A princess? The old man could only smirk. You'll see. Send in the client. A door on the side of the room opened, and in walked an old drunk. Admittedly, he was quite muscular, and his bare arms were rather scarred, but that did not change the fact that he was currently drinking a bottle of sake. What's with these super brats? Can they really protect me? Like, the short one with the super stupid face. Even with that sword he doesn't look that intimidating. Naruto's eyebrow twitched. I'll show you intimidating. He felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Kakashi's. Don't, Naruto. The boy sighed, and relaxed his stance. The drunk man resumed talking. Anyways, my name's Tazuna. I'm a super bridge builder from the land of waves, and I expect you to guard me until my latest project is finished. They stood at the open gates to the village. Naruto was hopping about excitedly, and Sakura was getting mildly annoyed. What is up with you? Why are you so hyper? Naruto grinned, but managed to keep his head on this time, because this is going to be my first time outside of the village. Tazuna looked a little worried. Am I alright with this super brat as a guard? The Jonin nodded his head. All three of them are very skilled for their age, and you've got me, a Jonin, as well. We ought to be just fine for bandits. Tazuna turned to the road. Bandits, huh? Naruto stood in the back of the formation as they walked along, with Kakashi in front. Sakura spoke up. Are there any ninja in the land of waves, Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi chuckled at the thought. No, there is no base for ninja in that country. It's a non-military country. No work for them there. The girl nodded as she walked by a puddle. I see. As they continued walking, the puddle rippled, and two dark figures emerged from it, water swirling around them in the air. They were wearing dark shirts with camouflage pants and leather boots, as well as one giant clawed gauntlet each, with a spiked chain connecting the gauntlets. They were wearing breath masks, and their Hite-Ite, which carried the symbol for Kirigakure, each had either one horn or two. They charged at Naruto, expertly wrapping him in the chain several times over in the span of a second. The blonde struggled against his bonds. The hell? What's going on? One of the ninjas spoke. One down. In an instant, Naruto was torn to shreds, and the pieces fell to the ground. If the two ninja were paying attention, they'd notice the lack of blood. One quickly charged Sasuke, who was already in a combat stance, and the other attacked Sakura, who quickly transformed into Guy. Before they could even reach their targets though, they were suddenly hoisted into the air, apparently by two hands that had grabbed the back of their shirts. They struggled and flailed, but to no avail. Naruto's voice came from behind them as they were spun around to face the still dismembered boy, whose various body parts were floating in the air. Naruto's head stuck out his tongue. Blee. You guys picked the wrong ninja to attack first. Kakashi walked between the two ninja in the air, and observed them. Normally I'd say good work. But how are we going to tie them up? Naruto's face blanched. Okay. Thought tie the rope to one of my other body parts and have me wrap it around them several times. Or how about I knock them together until they're knocked out? The Jonin sighed. I'll go with option number 1. I want them conscious for interrogation, thank you. Sasuke growled at Naruto as he walked past the shinobi who he was about to fight. Did you have to hog all of the glory for yourself? Naruto gave a smirk. What's the matter, jealous? The Uchiha smirked back. Yeah right, I don't get jealous. Sakura, on the other hand, was fuming on the inside. What's the point of power if someone else has power that makes mine look bad? I don't get to show off because of him, and I can't copy him either. After the two ninja were tied up, Kakashi started asking them questions. Alright, talk, why are you going after Tazuna? The one with one horn scoffed. We were hired to, why else? Tazuna gulped. How did you know they were after me? The gray-haired Jonin eyed his client. I didn't, they just told me. Naruto snickered into his hand. Classic. The one-horned ninja tilted his head. You aren't going to be getting any more information out of us. Kakashi rolled his one eye. I don't have to. I'm sure Tazuna here knows all the answers himself. Tazuna. If you had told us there would be ninja after you, this would have been set as a B rank. Why did you lie? Tazuna looked at the ground, but said nothing. It causes us problems when you lie. Luckily, my troops here are far from normal genin, so they could take on shinobi of this level. But if we keep going, they might send a Jonin after us. We ought to turn back and let someone more qualified handle it. Sakura crossed her arms over her chest. I say we should continue the mission. Like you said, we're far from normal genin, and we accepted the mission. We should at least see to it that he gets home safely. Sasuke held up his finger by his face and formed a blade on the bottom side. I agree. We can abandon the mission if you want to after we get him home. Besides, I haven't gotten any action yet. Naruto grinned, and took out a kunai from the holster on his leg. I would cut myself just to show how dedicated I am to this mission. But I can't be cut. Haha. Well, Anyways, my vote's for continuing the mission. Kakashi sighed. Well, I'm outvoted on the matter, so that's that. Tazuna raised an eyebrow. I didn't even have to pull out my last resort to get them to go along. Well, if that's the case, I'll tell you what you're really up against. A short man in a business suit, with a tall, bald bodyguard with sunglasses, pointed angrily at a muscular shinobi, nearly bare-chested if not for the strap around his neck to his pants, who was sitting on a couch. You failed, Zabuza. I'm paying good money, and you failed? The shinobi snorted. It was a test run, Gato. Those were the strongest shinobi under my employ aside from my apprentices. Next time, I'll go by myself. Besides, my older apprentice has informed me of who I'm against. Sharingan Kakashi and a team of genin. Apparently quite unique genin. I'm going to have to take Ren with me in my battle with them. The short man coughed. Ren? What good can that brat do? The ninja narrowed his eyes at the man. That brat's bare hands could crush you. Ren is my other apprentice, after all. And for good reason, too. After all, the demon of the mist ought to associate with real demons. The young blonde genin peered into the thick mist from his seat on the boat. Man, this mist is thick. The much older Tazuna chuckled. We'll be able to see my bridge soon. At the end of the bridge is where I need to go. Naruto's jaw literally dropped off when he saw the bridge, though it quickly reattached itself. Whoa, now that's a bridge. The boatman let out a low growl, followed by hushed tones. Be quiet. Why do you think we're not using the engine? We don't want Gato to find us. The boy quickly clamped his hands over his mouth, and there was silence for a short while. Kakashi's mind flashed back to what Tazuna had said earlier. They were up against the shipping magnate Gato, one of the richest men in the world. He had taken over the country's shipping lanes and was charging exorbitant prices for their usage, driving the country into poverty. In response, Tazuna was building this bridge. In response to that, Gato had hired shinobi to take him out. They soon went under another bridge, which had many tunnels in its side. They entered the tunnel, and when they came out the other side, they were by a village on the riverbanks. They soon found a dock and stopped by it, everybody but the boatman getting out. Tazuna turned to the man. Thanks for risking your neck, Kaji. Kaji nodded. Just don't get killed after all my hard work. The group soon found themselves on a path with trees and bushes on either side, with water in the distance where the path turned. Naruto was looking around anxiously. I bet if I catch those shinobi off guard, I'll get even more credit on this mission. Stretching his senses, he heard a rustle in the bushes, and let a shuriken fly. He immediately dived into the bushes, and came back with a turtle. Oops. Just a turtle. Sakura growled to herself. How can I be envious of a guy like him? He put down the turtle, and began scanning his surroundings again. Let's see. How about over there? He let another shuriken fly from his hand, and again it didn't seem to hit anything in particular. This time, however, Kakashi was quick to investigate where the shuriken had landed. The man frowned under his mask when he saw that it was a white snow rabbit, standing right below where the shuriken had hit. A white snow rabbit. In this season? Something's up. He suddenly heard a low whistling sound, the kind a large, bladed object made when spun. Everyone, get down. Sakura and Sasuke each grabbed Tazuna and yanked him down hard, while Naruto ducked on his own. Immediately, a large object flew through the air where their heads had been and then rose into the air, embedding itself in a tree further down the path. It was a very large sword, and after the group got back up and looked at it, they saw a man appear on it, his back to them. His back was bare, his arms were covered in long camouflage arm warmers, and on his legs were vertically striped pants. His neck and lower face were covered in bandages, which could be seen better when he turned his head. Kakashi instantly recognized him. Momochi Zabuza, the demon of the mist. You guys ought to get back, this guy's on a whole other level from the last two. He reached for his Hite-Ite, and began pushing up on it. I'm going to need this. Zabuza chuckled. I get to see your Sharingan already, Kakashi? I feel honored. Unfortunately for you, I'm not your only opponent today. Ren, get out here. Sasuke was so shocked by the statement of Kakashi having the Sharingan that he almost failed to notice the loud thump of a large something landing on the ground. He whirled around, and saw that it was some manner of turtle. Unlike most turtles, though, this one was clothed, and was standing on 2 legs. And was very, very, big, far taller than Kakashi. It was at least 8 feet tall. Sakura observed this. Turtle person. They had on a purple shirt, pants combo suit with a green. Well, turtleneck-like piece of clothing that only went a little farther down than their shoulders. Over its belly was a kirigakure hite sewn into the fabric. The turtle itself had purple, pupil-less eyes, and a scar ran down from its left eye to its jaw. Its feet were like a turtle's, but its hands were more human-like. All the same, they were covered in scales. There was a black strap going across its chest with a golden buckle, and on its back could be seen the handle of some sort of weapon, which ended in a hook. There was a large red flower on the handle, as well. Naruto looked between the 2 beings. I think I'll take my chances with the swordsman. What about you guys? Sakura smirked. I'd rather take on the turtle. Sasuke nodded in response. Either works for me. Their sensei groaned. All right, since we're surrounded. Naruto, Sasuke, you defend Tazuna. Sakura, you take on that thing. Guy's body ought to be up to the challenge. Naruto immediately took the side of the client facing Zabuza and Kakashi. I get this side. Sasuke groaned. Idiot. That guy's sword would just slice through you and through Tazuna. I should get the side facing Zabuza. The blonde thought about it for a moment. I hate it when you're right. He immediately went to Tazuna's other side and drew his sword, ready to face the creature should it attack him. Sakura put her right hand to her face, and changed into Guy again. All right, here I come. The creature grabbed the handle of its weapon, and pulled it out. It was nothing but a very large club. Naruto groaned. Great, I had to get the guy with the blunt weapon. It spoke. Its voice sounded like that of a human child, not quite a teen, and not quite either gender. Enemies of Zabuza-sama must perish. The end. Now we will see you in the next video.